Number 3 then, from the first paper of the 2014 National 5 exam. You look at that and say, complete the square. But they usually say, write it in the form of this, which is a square with an extra term added on. And it's called complete the square because that doesn't form a perfect square. You'd have to alter this number at the end by adding or subtracting something to then complete the square. So then you would end up with a square plus that corrected amount. Well, one way of doing that would be to know your pattern. Know your pattern for, and these are always going to be x plus a number, for squaring a bracket straight off, which is square the first, square the last, in the middle twice the product. So that would be ax doubled plus 2ax. But of course, if you know a couple of terms in the answer, you could go back again. So if I didn't know what that number was in the bracket, but I knew these two terms, well, I knew that one there should be double what's in there. So I could go from there to there, and if I didn't know the one at the end, I could then pop that back in just by squaring it. That's the pattern you should use. So that's what we'll do. Now, quite often you just jump straight into the answer because it is quite easy when it's monic. When you've got a monic quadratic, that's a quadratic where the coefficient of the x squared term is just 1. That makes it particularly easy to complete the square and to factorise and so on. But I'll still set it out. The thing is, this 44 doesn't make it a square. So I'll write down these two terms and I'll leave that 44 sitting outside. There you go. And I'll try and figure out what it would take to complete the square. What should I have here that makes it a square? I can do that just by using the pattern backwards. Well, forward and backwards. If I was squaring the bracket, that must have been x to make x squared. The middle term would be from twice the product. So if that's minus 14, that must be minus 7. And now that I know that that's a minus 7 at the end, squaring it, well, squaring it's always going to make it plus anyway, will be plus 49. That's what it would take to complete a square. So it's a 49 I wanted, not a 44. But instead of thinking how do I rearrange that, you would just say, well, I've added that to the expression, so I'll take it away from the expression. 44 take away 49 is minus 5. And all it said was write it in that form, and rather than state the values of a and b. You have to watch if it says something like state the values of a and b. Because notice if it said write it in the form of x minus a, and it said state the value of a would just be the 7, because the minus is there already. It just said write it in the form. And the marks were just broken into, obviously, the two parts. 1 mark for having 7 in the bracket, and 1 mark for having the minus 5.